Chapter 10. The Big Reveal. Onami, Delmar, and Enoch filed into the Medici's dwelling and waited for their chance to speak with Methuselah alone. "This may take a while," said Onami, content to watch the girl work to put the room back in order. Delmar shrugged. Enoch paced around the room. Tafara, "It's good to be back home." He paused directly in front of Methuselah and gazed deeply into his son's eyes. "Are you sure they can't hear or see me?" Methuselah made a fire, then started mending the broken door. "Not at all, unless you reveal yourself. Oh, and don't move any objects around while they are looking. Humans can't see us, however. They can see inanimate objects move mysteriously by themselves," said Onami, chuckling. "It's not good to startle them." Enoch's mouth dropped. "Hey, was that you who moved my—" Onami into disapproving gaze and continued cheerfully. "But I do agree with you, Enoch," said Onami. "It is nice to be back here with you on Adama. Of course, it is no heaven's realm, but the place does have its charms." Tafara swept her dwelling clean until every inch was free of dust or debris, while Methuselah sat brooding around the fire. "You know, it was foolish to take off like that," said Methuselah. "I would have gladly escorted you if you had just waited." "If I had waited, this would have been even worse," said Tafara, placing her hand on her hip. Methuselah said nothing. Enoch, the girl Tafara makes really good ketu," said Onami. "Do you like ketu?" "Like it," said Enoch. "It is one of the things I miss most about Adama. I would give anything for a cup right now." "Good," said Onami. "I'll get her to make some." "Onami," said Delmar, "remember you can't interfere like that." I am not interfering," Onami replied. "I am merely assisting our charge with a very simple request. We were told to make sure that Enoch has everything he needs to complete his task, and I am sure he really needs a cup of ketu." Onami focused his thoughts towards Tafara. "Actually, more like an extra. You know, I should make a couple of pots of ketu before we leave." "Would you like some?" said Tafara. She poured water into 2 pots filled with leaves and spices and hung them over the fire. A rich aroma soon filled the room. Methuselah stood still in the doorway, not saying a word, while he put the finishing Finally, Tafara broke the silence. "Oh, do not be cross with me, Methuselah. You know I am right. Just think of what could have happened if I had not been the first to arrive back home." She shuddered at the thought. "Anyone else probably would have been killed by those wolves. Just wait until I tell Father Seth. Someone has a lot of explaining to do. How in Adama did the trackers allow a pack of bloodlust wolves to roam free in the 7 hills?" Methuselah sighed and turned toward her. "Unfortunately, you are probably the best with a blade in the whole Seti of Seth. Maybe not, too. Even Tubal-Cain was almost killed by bloodlust wolves in Avonland Forest. Tribe, or yourself for that matter, to fall on you. I should have been there. What if something happened to you? My father is gone. Mother Eve is dead. I could not bear it if anything." Tafara tilted her head and smiled. "What is this, young one? Do I hear true sentiment for your dear old aunt? Her smile softened as she poured him a cup of ketu and handed it to him. "I miss Enoch and Mother Eve too, but I know how to take care of myself and I am perfectly fine. In fact, I am elated I finally got the chance to perfect this technique I had been working on out in the plains the other day. It is a double blade maneuver that can also be used when dismounting a forerunner and—" Delmar listened to the girl describe the moves and glared at Onami. "Have you been teaching Tafara our drills?" he demanded. "Oh, me?" said Onami innocently. He grabbed 2 cups for himself while Tafara's back was turned. "I would never do that intentionally, but I have discovered that some humans are very sensitive to the well-timed suggestion here and there." "She is pretty good," Delmar admitted. "It was probably a wise course of action since it will be up to her to guard that tunic." "Speaking of tunics, how am I going to give this to Methuselah with Tafara around?" asked Enoch. "If we don't do it soon, we may not have another chance before they head off to the Seti of Nod." "He's right," said Delmar. "Let's get her to leave. Maybe you could cause a disturbance outside and then she will leave to see the cause. No way, said Enoch. Methuselah will never let her go out alone again tonight. You heard him. I've got an idea, said Anami. He focused his thoughts on the girl. Tafara, it would be most wise to rest before leaving. A warrior fights best when refreshed. Tafara to admit it, but I think fighting off those wolves took more out of me than I realized. I think it would be wise for me to get some rest. She settled down by the fire. I will just take a quick nap before sun's birth. Enoch and Delmar stared at each other, dumbfounded. How did you do that? Enoch exclaimed. Tafara each other, dumbfounded. How did you do that? Enoch exclaimed. Tafara never takes naps. She collapses, and only after she can't fight off sleep any longer. Anami sat down by the fire too and began humming a melody. Oh, I guess I just have a way with people sometimes. I understand how she thinks. Too bad. Methuselah's time. Location, Sheol Adama. First dimension. What? The great leader fumed as he slapped the lesser and sent him sprawling across the room. I leave you pitiful beasts for just a moment to consort with the powers in second heaven, and I return to utterance. Where is the garment? I have need of it now. He snatched up the lesser by the neck and held him high in the air. Hades, I should send him to the pit this instant, don't you think? It would be my pleasure to escort him to the pit, said the leader's second in command. Please, please, my lord, contorted human-like figure, still partially covered with the hair of a wolf. You don't understand. The girl Well, I am waiting, said the great Star-Lord, and I don't hear anything that tells me why you shouldn't be sent to the pit. No, not that. Listen, the girl has the garment, and she knows how to war. Her moves were not. I sent 5 of you to do a simple job. Take a simple object of clothing, a garment, from a girl, and you can't even do that. Where are the other 4? They are gone, and when I saw them thrust through, I get further instructions, my lord. Something like this has never happened before. The great leader dropped the lesser into a heap on the floor. Gone, did you say? Yes, they just vanished, the lesser tried to explain. I did see the casings of the wolves we used, but I couldn't find the rest of our troop, who possessed them anywhere. Usually if our host is injured or killed, we regroup and find a new host. But when the girl thrust them through with her spear and blades, I saw no one exit. I looked everywhere for them. Where could they be, my lord? The great leader ignored the troubling conclusion forming in his mind. I am only concerned about getting that garment. Apparently the residue is giving her unusual strength, he answered casually. This only confirms my plan for its use. Ah, I see it now. It must be given, not taken. That was mentioned somewhere. The great leader muttered to himself. Both Hades and the lesser knew better than to interrupt the great leader's train of thought, so they both remained silent. But no matter, I will have it. Finally, the great Star-Lord turned away from the bruised lesser and walked over to face his first officer. The power was busy perusing the scrolls scattered on the table. Hades, what are our options? Quickly remove her garment. Perhaps she can be persuaded to part with it with the right motivation, said the power smoothly. Excellent, Hades, said the great leader. Now you are thinking like me. I see my training has not gone to waste on my best pupil. Well, my dear servant, said the great leader, giving the lesser's head a pat. Pupil. Well, my dear servant, said the great leader, giving the lesser's head a pat. All is not lost. You have proven to be of some small use. Tell me, what is this girl's name? The lesser hobbled over to the table to lift himself up. His form was back to its normal, gross, but hairless state, knowing he would pay dearly for the wrong answer. I think I heard the humans call her Tafara. Methuselah's time, location, Seti of Nod, Adama, first dimension. Tubal-Cain made his way slowly up the beaten path towards Semjaza's dwelling, slamming the tall, keen rod into the soft earth with each step. It was more for comfort than necessity. He needed no aid to traverse the slippery incline. The rhythm from the pounding seemed to help him order his thoughts. As for Samjaza, feign an emergency, draw the Benai Elohim away. He repeated this in an emergency, draw the Benai Elohim away. Repetition replaced the other thought, just waiting for a break in his concentration. Pure fear. What would the giant child thing do? How strong was he? Would the Benai Elohim suspect anything? What if Father Lamech and the elders were not convincing? How long would his hunting party have before the Elohim returned? Tubal-Cain pounded the rod even harder into the ground, as if the sound would make his fears go away. While he trudged up the main path leading to the dwellings of the divine, a troop of hunters, led by his half-brothers, Jubal and Jabal, were making their way to Samjaza's abode too. Their approach would be virtually undetectable through the dense forest trail. Tubal-Cain calculated he would arrive approximately one sunshade ahead of them, just enough time to make casual conversation. Then, the first hunter would bring urgent news to the hunter and insist there was no cause for alarm. He would insist they needed no help to settle the disagreement on the pending births. Please, Captain Samjaza, be at ease. I can assure you the expecting mothers will be most safe, and this foolish talk of revenge for Naaman's death is merely the high emotions common to mortal men. He rehearsed the lines, whispering them several times until the pretense rang true even to his ears. No, Samjaza, not all of the sons of Cain feel this way. Only half do, and the other half are still most reasonable and willing to forgive the trespass, providing no other daughter of Cain passes into the shadows this way. I am most positive I can calm the sentiments of only 1,000 or so angry men. If Samjaza took the bait, then Tubal-Cain was to whistle for a forerunner and following close behind. This whistle would also signal the hidden teams to infiltrate Samjaza's abode and kill the abominable wolf before the other Elohim returned. Tubal-Cain paused for a moment, pounding the rod into the ground with one last resounding thud. He had arrived. Tubal-Cain surveyed the Watcher's settlement. The tidy wooden homes of the divine were just beyond the dirt path, nestled beneath a canopy of trees. An elaborate stone path replaced the dirt where the first home began, and at the far end stood the centerpiece of the village. A few of Samjaza's men moved about freely among the homes, barely noticing him. The rest are probably patrolling the expanse just beyond Avanland Forest for Dama knows what. Maybe it is just my imagination, but they had all seemed to be preoccupied with something since Naaman's death, and on edge, too. He finally considered the idea he had been avoiding the entire trek up the path. What if Father Lamech is wrong? Tubal-Cain grimaced. The plan sounded so simple and sure when spoken by his father. What if Captain Samjaza won't leave? Then what? Tubal-Cain pounded his rod again into the dirt and pushed the thought back down. I have to do this. It is the least I can do for Naaman now. And the others. He thought of his sister laying on that stone-cold slab, a lifeless beauty, who still looked as if she were merely asleep. Her ceremony of passage would begin tomorrow at sunsleep when the moon was full. He frowned. Rage began to fill him again as he remembered Samjaza's response at Naaman's death. Look at my son. Is he not a symbol of perfection, a joy from the Ancient One himself? Captain Samjaza and lay dying. Why, he never cared one fig for Naamah. She would never have married Samjaza if she had known their child would be a... You there! Shouted the Benai Elohim at Tubal-Cain, startling him. The guard left his post at Samjaza's gate and approached him with rapid steps. I was just... Tubal-Cain began to explain. Captain Samjaza requires your presence immediately, said the Watcher, as he turned on his heel, not even considering that Tubal-Cain would not obey. Follow me. Well, that was easy. At least I don't have to make up a reason to see Samjaza. Tubal-Cain cleared his throat and tried to hide the anger he felt. Many pardons, my good Benai, said Tubal-Cain. But what does Captain Samjaza require from me? How should I know, human? The Watcher continued, walking without so much as a glance over his shoulder. You will find out soon enough. Simjaza splashed the cool liquid over his face, allowing the water to pool in his eyes and drizzle down his cheeks. He slapped his face a few times until his fleshy covering turned ruddy just above the cheeks and under his eyes. Perfect. Simjaza remembered the great leader's instructions. He was prepared to carry them out with precision. Tossed things about the room, tousled his groomed dark locks until he looked like a wild man. He caught his reflection in the metallic plate mounted on the wall and grinned. He grabbed the figurine his childling had carved earlier. The image's likeness to Nema was unmistakable. He clutched the figure close to his chest and collapsed by the stone fire pit in the corner of the room. He kept his head near the flames, so the heat and ash dirtied his face and flushed his cheeks even more. He lay still, waiting and thinking, practicing the words the great leader told him to say. Captain Simjaza called a strong male voice from outside, followed by 3 quick raps on the door. I have Tubal-Cain, son of Lamech, here, as you requested. Please, send him in. Simjaza's tone was weak and raspy. He cringed at what the Elohim officer must think of seeing him crumpled on the floor, a disheveled mess. But perception is everything. He remembered the great leader's warning. He must be convinced you are sincere or he will not cooperate. So Simjaza swallowed his pride and focused on the goal. The door swung open and the human entered the room cautiously. Simjaza waited a few moments to make sure Tubal-Cain saw him on the floor. Oh, Tubal-Cain, I am most grateful to see you, said Simjaza, pulling himself up slowly from the ground. Everything just hit me all at once. She is Nema. She's really gone. He held up the figurine still clutched in his hands and burst into sobs. Tubal-Cain's mouth opened wide enough to toss a kernel from the pot into it. He narrowed his eyes. For a moment, Tubal-Cain said nothing. He was too stunned to respond. Instead, he gripped his rod tightly, assessing the usually elegant in-command captain, looking anything but that. Finally, he cleared his throat. Tubal-Cain took a few steps toward the Elohim figurine in Simjaza's hand for the first time. What is that? He asked. Oh, it is just a token of my... Simjaza grabbed a cloth from his cloak and dabbed at his eyes. Pardon me, I just needed to do something. Something with my hand, said Simjaza quietly. He held out the figure to Tubal-Cain. Tubal-Cain grabbed it, turning it over in his hands as he gazed into the incredibly lifelike face. Simjaza's voice still wavered with emotion. It is Nema. I tried my best to memorialize her beauty in this wood, to my family and my tribe. Simjaza looked hurt and shocked all at once. He began slowly. No, Tubal-Cain, nothing could be further from the truth. Why, ever since I was assigned to observe the sons of Adama, I have only had the utmost respect for your people. Have you so soon forgotten how we came to your aid in Avonland Forest when the wolves attacked you and you almost perished? Had it not been for our techniques, you would have died. Tubal-Cain gave a reluctant nod. Yes, but... And have you forgotten the remedies we have shared for healing, the knowledge we gave for crafting of metal, and not to mention our willingness to marry the daughters of Cain to bring about your restoration? That's the point. Nema is not restored. She is dead. Tubal-Cain yelled, unable to contain his anger any longer. And next, do you Elohim mean to celebrate while the rest of our daughters die, giving birth to your offspring? Tubal-Cain spat the words out like venom. Certainly not, shouted Simjaza, squaring his shoulders as he gave the shorter man an icy glare. But then, just as quickly, Simjaza turned away as he considered his next words. Tears filled his eyes again. He spoke softly. You misunderstand us. You misunderstand me. I did truly love Nema. It is just the way of the B'nai Elohim. to focus on the joy of the moment and not the sorrow. We come from a place of perfection and know little of the sorrows the sons of Adama face. That is why I did not show sadness at Naaman's condition after our childling was delivered. I was certain we could heal her. In time, I did not realize the extent of her injuries. Samjaza paused and began to sob again. Tubal-Cain was speechless. I never realized they thought they would heal her before she died, the way they did for me. Perhaps we have been too hasty in our perspective, Tubal-Cain began. Samjaza interrupted with a nod. It is true. I care for Naamah deeply and ever have been working tirelessly to find a way to bring her back, he said sincerely. In fact, Azazel and many of my best officers are scouring the land of Adama for the articles we need to help Naamah to bring her back. Do you mean to tell me you know how to bring Naamah back from the dead? I thought only the Ancient One, Cain asked incredulously. How could this be? It has been 2 whole sun sleeps since she died. But I guess the Hidden Father could tell you how. This is wondrous news. I must go and tell the... Samjaza grabbed Tubal-Cain by the shoulders. Tubal-Cain, listen. Yes, I share your excitement at the thought of my Naamah returning to us. Too, but there is one problem, and that is what had me so distraught when you arrived. I thought we could gather everything we needed in time, but there is one item missing. Well, what is it? Tubal-Cain demanded. My men, we know where it is, Samjaza added sorrowfully, but I do not see how we can get it, considering, he hesitated. Considering what? Just tell me what you need, said Tubal-Cain. Samjaza sighed. We need Mother Eve's garment. Mother Eve's garment? How can her garment help Naamah? Sit, offered Samjaza, motioning his hand towards the cushions surrounding the fire. I will explain as quickly as I can because we don't have much time. Tubal-Cain nodded anxiously and plopped down next to Samjaza by the fire. The 2 men spoke in low, hushed tones about elixirs hidden words lost to all men after Adam, and the residue of life-giving power abiding in the very fibers of the garment handmade by the Ancient One himself. So, can I count on you to convince Mother Eve to allow us the use of her garment? As looked directly into his eyes. I know I have disappointed you before, but I am asking you to trust me. Trust us one more time. We can save Naamah, but we must perform the rite of passage by sun sleep tomorrow, or there will be nothing left of her to revive. Oh, well, said Tubal-Cain, stopping when he heard 3 quick raps on the door. Yes, what now? Snapped Samjaza, turning to face the door. We caught these humans in the woods just outside the camp, Captain. The watcher who had escorted Tubal-Cain earlier stepped inside and shoved the men brusquely into the room. They had some story about hunting a bloodless wolf or something, but we have been all through these woods and have seen no errant beasts. Trust me, we would know because we hunt night and day just to get raw flesh for the child. Ah, yes, Samjaza cut him off with the palm of his hand and addressed the men directly. Jubal stumbled into the room, bumping into Jabal, who pushed him back and glared. Tubal-Cain's eyes widened. Oh, quick, Tubal-Cain. You must return at once. Jubal spoke in a voice as slow and dry as the sands of the Southlands. He repeated his lines from Father Lamech's original plan perfectly. You see, honored Benai Elohim, the tribesmen are upset. The council is meeting as we... I can explain. Tubal-Cain silenced the man's monotone response with the palm of his hand. The council is concerned about reports of blood left by my tracking party to hunt it down. Tubal-Cain continued quickly before his brothers could chime in. But the wolf has moved on, so there has been a change of plan, said Tubal-Cain. He stared intently at his brothers as if he could relay the importance of their obedience with one look. Jubal squinted, looked confused, and mouthed, What? Tubal-Cain responded by glaring even harder and said, Please return to the seat of elders at El Tavah. Let Father Lamech know there has been a new development. Jabal and Jubal stared blankly at Tubal-Cain. But Father Lamech will not, Jabal began. Enough, barked Tubal-Cain, sounding more like Lamech than he knew. The hidden Father has answered our prayers again. The honored Benai Elohim Captain Simjaza has informed me that Nema can be revived. This is a time for rejoicing, not questioning. Please relay the good tidings to Father Lamech. The hunters say the good tidings to Father Lamech. The hunter stood there, dumbfounded. Well, you heard him, said Captain Simjaza with a wave of his hand. Be off now, and follow orders or my guards will not be pleased. Tubal-Cain waited until the men left the room. Then he grabbed his tall rod and headed for the door. I must leave at once for the Seti of Seth, he said, bowing in farewell to Simjaza, and when I return, all will be well. Simjaza